You ready, Mac?
Not yet, almost.
Almost ready.
Hey, don't wiggle the mouse.
You get any sleep last night? Yeah, you had to travel after the public hearing. Now you're back over here. Get used to it.
Feels like we did this like 12 hours ago.
I know. That's right. There's Kenneth.
I'm
Hey,
here.
Commissioner Maryboy, you there?
How are you, Kenneth?
Good morning, Jay.
Hey. I'm good. Just trying to get over the cold.
It's going to be cold until May.
Oh, man. Darn flu's around. I shouldn't have gotten my flu shot. That's the one that drove me crazy.
Well,
We're going to have to talk to public health about that.
I'm taking the fifth on that.
Yeah, we should pass a resolution to stop giving shots to people.
No more flu shots because it gives you the flu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no more flu shots. Do away with the mask and the flu shot and all.
So true.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah. All right. Commissioners, we are up and ready. I
Okay.
think we're recording. Are we recording? Are we on Facebook Live, Henry?
My really poor, so I'll be going in and out. And I'm gonna try to stay with you guys.
I'll call the meeting to order at this time. It's 11:03. County Commissioner for State of Utah, San Juan County. We have a agenda. Time is
You are not live.
right now 11:03. Roll call. I recognize Mr. Commissioner Adams, present, and also on board is Mr. Maryboy and myself. So we do have a full quorum.
Are we live now? We're not live. Wait
Keep
just a
on going.
minute.
We'll try to work it out behind the scenes.
We didn't have any problems till Met showed up.
You push record on that.
He doesn't know how much I harass people, does he?
Say that it's running.
Nothing on Facebook? Our citizen Facebooker. Refresh it and see. Still nothing, huh? All right. I'll just keep on going. We'll work on it. See if we can get our IT.
Are you texting Trey?
Yeah.
Okay. And I will not.
He says it's live.
It's
Is Tammy in there?
I'm good to go.
Let's see here. So we're live now?
you're live now.
Oh, I like it.
50 seconds.
Now let me try this. Get back. Okay, sorry, commissioners. We are ready to go.
Okay.
Okay. Next, going to invocation. Any volunteers?
Want me, you
I
go?
will, yeah.
Okay.
Are dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this morning that we have to gather as county commissioners and interested citizens. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to participate in government, and pray that they'll bless those who decide and cast votes today, that they'll do the best for the county and the residents, and to lift all. And we pray that will be with us and watch over us this day. And this we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We will go ahead and proceed with reading of the proposed agenda.
All right. For today, under the consent agenda items, you have the approval of the December 6, 2022 commission meeting minutes. You have approval of $20,851.44 in small purchases. Those small purchases are as follows. You have $5,500 for IPW booth registration. You have $3,595 for Denver Travel and Adventure Show registration. $3,200 for international tourism events for economic development and visitor services. That's a lot. It kind of sounds like Elaine's traveling there, but really it's just the event shows and everything that helps promote us. The $1,855 for a pump for a crack seal machine. Let's see, then we've got $3,024.37 for parts for the Monticello City garbage truck. Some would question, why do we have parts for the Monticello City garbage truck on here? This would be a pass-through to them as we repair city equipment both in Blanding and Monticello because of the expertise of our mechanics in the road department. We've done that for multiple years now. And then you've got $3,407.07 for Makaiza Rammer for the road department, which is a compactor. Item number 3 is approval of $400 for the 2022 general election poll worker contract with Jeanette Badback. And then item 4 is approval of a retail beer license renewal for Amtrak at Halls, Aramark at Halls.
Give one damn track. I think it'd be okay.
And the Halls Crossing Marina. I know, I was just handing out beer licenses to anybody with an A name. And so under recognitions, presentations, and informational items, recognition of Commissioner Mary Boy and Commissioner Gray Eyes' years of service. Then under business action items, item 6, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the San Juan County Chief Administrative Officer to begin reorganizing the County Emergency Medical Services Department funds and assets in exploration to transition services back to the appropriate taxing entity within San Juan County's health district if deemed organizationally and financially in the best interest of the county and all of our citizens. I'll present that one.
Was there any periods in there, or was that all?
I know that was a big old long sentence. I go over the fanboy, and there was no fanboy. If anybody knows English rules of fanboy.
All right.
So item 7, consideration and approval of an ordinance adopting the regular schedules county meetings for the 2023 annual meeting schedule pursuant to section 52-4-202 of Utah Code.
Are those still first and third?
Yeah, and I'll touch on that as well. The item 8, ratification of $142,622 grant from the State of Utah Department of Cultural and Community Engagement for the replacement of the San Juan County Historic Courthouse boiler system. Item 9, consideration and approval of a contract with Javiation and Woolport Company for engineering and consulting services for the Cal Black Memorial Airport. Item 10 is consideration and approval of a memorandum of understanding with Grand County Trails for $3,960 for the development of the Mud Springs Trail. And that'll be presented by Elaine, our Economic Development Visitor Services Director. Then we've got item 11, consideration and approval of a contract with Thomas D. Suttered, attorney at law for the Public Defender Services for $174,000. Item 12, approval of an additional 2022 budget appropriation request budget increases may be funded by new revenues, state and local fiscal recovery funds, and or monies unspent in prior years. So it's adoption of that budget. And then item number 13, we've got discussion and approval of the proposed 2023 San Juan County budget. Both of these had public hearings last night. Was well attended really by staff. Not necessarily the public, but other than that, you have commission reports and the adjournment.
Okay. With that,
Motion.
comment. Motion?
I second
Aye.
the motion to
Ken?
approve the agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
Any further question or comment? There be none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Also. Opposed, nay? 3 in favor, 0 opposed, motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. You have 1 through 4. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 4 items on our consent agenda today.
Second.
Okay, any question, comments? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also.
Aye.
I'll just make one comment. I didn't jump in fast enough.
Okay.
These 3 shows that you're going to, Elaine, you haven't been to many shows this year, have you?
No.
You've tried to keep it more local and centrally located. Yeah, I really appreciate that because sometimes in the past we've gone overseas and all kinds of stuff. So I appreciate.
Doing that. We did the Sportsman Show in Sandy, and we did the IPW, the International Show. But the smaller shows that we're doing here in Denver, because Denver is a
Right.
market that sticks out with spending for
Yeah.
San Juan County. So we're working on these sort of local shows, but no, we won't be doing any international
Yeah.
travel.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, that's all I
Is
have.
there any opposed? There being none, the motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Next,
Recognition.
All right, recognition. Turn a second to Anne Marie.
Okay. Commissioner Gray Eyes and Commissioner Mary Boy. Thank you for your service to San Juan County. Your race for county commissioners 4 years ago yielded a historic first where it was a majority Native American commission for San Juan County. During your time as county commissioners, you've seen unprecedented times. You've had a lot of influence, way too much for me to stand up here and mention. But you did see the people and the employees of San Juan County through the COVID-19 pandemic. You were the voice of reason against misinformation, helping people keep their, know what's going on. You worked with various government entities and private entities to get electricity to the people of the Westwater community. That is historic as well. And by working with community partners, you've been able to make sure secure voting is accessible to all residents of San Juan County. Now, during the years that you have served as county commissioners, you have made San Juan County your priority, and we do appreciate everything that you guys have done. Okay.
Can I say something?
thank you.
Commissioner Maryboy and Commissioner Gray Eyes, I think some very historic things happened during your tenure. One of the most historic things that happened was the state of Utah settling a water dispute with the Navajo Nation out of the San Juan River for specifically those citizens of San Juan County that are living on the reservation. And the end result of that will be that every Native American home will have drinking water delivered to their home. And it's going to take some time, I realize, but the end result of that is every home is going to have drinking water, which is, I mean, we started talking about that in 2004 when I first got on the commission. It only took 18 years to get it done, but it's very historic and very commendable to have that happen under your tenure. Thanks.
Yeah. I'd just like to comment that not what Mr. Adams stated, that every home will be served. I don't see that. Not by a long shot. Still have to go another 100, 200 miles in order to have people understand what kind of situation that we're in on the Navajo Nation. Of course, I hear it's all flat and accessible, but out of Navajo Mountain, it's a torn geographically area. So a lot of necessities are being neglected. Services are being neglected. And I will continue to advocate and continue to work in those areas of need. So hopefully that we can address right now under the I've been a part of the 7 county, which I was appreciate the privilege to have been a part of it, and hopefully we'll continue the dialogue that we had established, and in order to address the needs of those areas. If you have lived out there and depended on the land itself years ago, there was self-sufficiency. But now all the supermarkets, stores that have been established, and the weather, climate change, all of that has changed their lives to some higher degree of dependency on certain government entities by my people. And I'd like to see if those can be reinvigorated and continue to maybe on a small on a small scale that would demonstrate, hey, we need to get involved. We need to work for ourselves and not look at the agency that just hands out funding. So with those statements, I would like to share with you. I hope the coverage of those areas and concern, understanding, come on, bring a sledgehammer. Let's break those boulders down.
Yeah, get water up there.
That's what we need to do in order to address the dire need of my people. And that's why I've always advocated. I don't look for just recognition, but I'd rather see services. And I'm still working on water lines and power lines and roads and stuff like that. So those will be continued, even though I'm decommissioned as of the last day of this month.
Decommissioned.
Well,
Out of the
Willie,
commission.
your presence on the infrastructure board you were able to get the lieutenant governor and many of the legislators to come to Navajo Mountain on 2 or 3 occasions and look at the road project from Rainbow City down to Monument Valley, and I think your influence was paramount in getting them to recognize that and getting the state to put up the money to look at the environmental part of it. And I think the state's committed to that whole idea, whether you're on the commission or not. You got it started, you got the ball rolling, and I think it'll continue.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Well, any of you can, if you can support it,
Yeah.
from the attorney side.
Get the
Real
legal side of it,
grateful.
huh?
I know Jane really advocated and highlighted that the subcommunity of Navajo Mountain, Paiute Mesa, is a third world situation, third world country situation.
It is.
So with that statement that she made, I really appreciate the outside observations that can further my justification for it. Thank you. With
Yeah,
that,
well, one of them. So I think just with Commissioner Maryboy being online as well, we did want to give that just kind of a token of appreciation. But I think, I hope the public realize and understand there's, you see Commissioner Gray Eyes out there and in his BMW. I'm surprised it's lasted this long with as many miles as he's put. I know it's been into service a couple times down in Tucson and Page, just trying to get worked on to keep it going. But there's a lot of interactions and a lot of meetings that take place behind the scenes outside of just these commission meetings. And oftentimes it's pretty hard to do the public's bidding and hope you're on the right footing with you. Sometimes it's a tug of war between, different constituents and kind of their concerns. But, it's been a pleasure working with you guys throughout these last 4 years and learning from you, learning about the culture and kind of the nuances of trying to get government work to take place here in San Juan County. To me, it's always been interesting where we work in 2 different governments with the Navajo Nation, even the Ute government as well. And there's a lot of differences, and you see those sometimes in the conflicts that arise between what can take place in a county commission meeting compared to what takes place in a Navajo council meeting. And there's just a lot of difference, a lot of nuances that these guys have had to juggle as they've learned a Utah system and a Navajo system that they're brought up on, and where can the money be spent. That was always a challenge for us. Is CDBG on the Utah side can only go to Utah. It can't go down to the Navajo Nation because they have their own system. And how do we get them to communicate? And so a lot of miles from all the way up north, all the way down south to Window Rock. We've kind of covered all that land back and forth together. But it's been a pleasure working with you guys and learning from you in that process. I know because of your leadership, it just doesn't stop here. It'll continue through your efforts. You've been active and engaged with citizens, and I know that it's not a goodbye. We'll see you again in further meetings as we try to get broadband, for example, out into our communities. Kind of that last mile effort. We've done a really good job about getting broadband throughout our county, all the way down south. But now it's how do we connect the homes and into the chapters, and so we still need you. We still will look forward to seeing you at those chapter meetings and representing in those other meetings. I know that this isn't the last for you guys in your leadership, and so
yeah.
That being said, I don't know if anybody else want to take a second. That's all I've got.
I
really.
just further like to express my appreciation for all the challenges that have been brought to my attention, even those people that have approached me in ways that are not appreciated, but bless them. I pray for them. And I let them yell at me because I feel that if they can do that, they are able to heal themselves, get that whatever they have in their system through their voice and be heard. And everybody, as I understand, is a healer. If you can say something good, positive to a person, you have chased the negative out of the person and feel the feeling of goodness is there. So that way, I try not to, well, never. I learned that through my work experience, having to work with behavioral health for several years, social service, and that has been my position and my continue to stay there. And thank you very much, Doctor, for the help. We sat down and we talk about the Navajo cultural practice, and hopefully someday it will be implemented somewhere. I know some of the, I know the school district does have a cultural program. They're putting hogans in on their ground. I don't know to what extent they have. Maybe they have ceremonies. I don't know. Ceremonies on the principle. We have no idea. So it is slowly penetrating cross-cultural practice. So thank you very much for that, and hopefully continue that some of those trends. Thank you. With that, Kenneth, do you have any, Commissioner Mayor, do you have anything to say?
No,
Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll go next to the business action.
All right. Under item number 6, let me flip over here so everybody can see it.
I can make a motion on that so you don't have to read it again.
Okay. Go.
That's pretty lengthy and there's no period, so it takes your breath away. I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution authorizing our chief administrator to begin reorganizing the EMS department in conjunction with the San Juan Health District.
Is there a second to the motion?
I think we've lost him.
I'll go ahead and second. Any comment? Question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also.
And I think,
Okay.
Commissioner,
Really hear 'em?
we anticipate that this will be a process that'll take probably 6 months, right, Mac?
Correct. And that's what we got in the resolution.
All those opposed? There being none, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, motion carries. 7,
Okay, 7 is consideration and approval of an ordinance adopting the regularly scheduled county meetings for the 2023 annual meeting schedule pursuant to Utah Code. On here, in the resolution, we stuck with our same meeting schedule that we've always had in here, and it's really just a formality that we do this for the newspapers. In here, there's no electronic meetings we've had in the past through COVID. The need to point out that some of these meetings are going to be electronic. All since COVID is now not necessarily passed, but restrictions are fewer. We took out that electronic meeting component. In here, I also acknowledge the fact that typically with a transitioning commission, it is normal practice in government where we would have joint meetings with entities, and so I can clearly see an opportunity out there for this next year to meet with Monticello City, Blanding City, some of the chapters as well. I know that Grand County has reached out; they would like to have a joint meeting, possibly Moab City, and so Dove Creek in Dolores County has reached out to us prior to COVID, and these are kind of all of our partners. They've all expressed these joint meetings. We don't have them scheduled right now, but I think our intentions need to be such that we do reach out to them and try to schedule these meetings. And typically those meetings would take place in, the cities or towns or chapters out there, but it'll be a joint special meeting specific to them so we can listen to them and their needs. And so I'm hoping that the next oncoming commission can agree to that, but we'll schedule those in the future. So I did just kind of hint at that fact that we need to be out amongst these cities and towns in joint meetings with them so that we can hear them as well. This next year in our budget, we also have the general fund or the general plan that we'll be looking at, and part of those joint meetings could be surrounding that. What do we need to do here at the county to make sure that we're doing the public's bidding and come and hear them. And so there is that in this ordinance, a little bit more unique than what you've typically seen. Any questions?
need a motion?
Make a motion to approve the ordinance adopting the regular meeting schedule for county commission meetings for 2023.
Second. Second.
We got you.
Any question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. How do you vote, Ken?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, nay, 0. Motion carries, 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Next,
Okay, the next one is ratification of a $142,622 grant from the State of Utah Department of Cultural and Community Engagement for the replacement of San Juan County Historic Courthouse boiler system. Long before we began the budget process, we submitted a grant through our funded grant manager or grant applicant. She helps us on these grants. This is one of those that we've been awarded with her efforts of applying for this to go towards that HVAC system upgrade here in this building. If you remember right, when we presented this in the budget, we were looking around $300,000 for the upgrade of the system. Well, through this grant, we were able to receive $142,000 of it. And so Sam will continue with the overall study of what we need to do in this building, but you have some additional funds here to help out.
motion. Any motion?
I'll make a motion to ratify the acceptance of the $142,622 from the State of Utah Department of Culture and Community Engagement to replace the boiler in the county courthouse.
You can have hot water for the prisoners.
And maybe we'll have some cooler meetings.
Yeah. Cooler air.
Is there a second to the motion?
I think we lost him.
I'll go ahead and second. Good for question, comments? If not, call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 There he was.
Opposed, nay. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries. Number 9.
Okay, we've got consideration and approval of a contract with Javiation, a Woolpert company, for engineering and consulting services for the Cow Black Memorial Airport US 96. Last commission meeting, you approved the notice of award, an exclusive negotiation with this company to perform that engineering and consulting services at the airport. There's no cost to this until the projects come about, and then the FAA has a fee schedule that comes out of the projects at that time. So
Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve the contract with Javiation for the engineering consulting services at Cow Black Memorial Airport.
Second that.
Thank you. Any further question? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Next, Mr. Midtown.
okay, Elaine, we have, let's see, consideration and approval of a memorandum of understanding with Grand County Trails for $3,960 for the development of the Mud Springs Trail. Go ahead, Elaine.
Thank you. We're very excited to be partnering with Active Trails and Transportation from Grand County, and Tyson Swayze, who is a professional trail designer, will be putting together the design, which will take a couple of different phases. But I know that everyone on that end at Grand County is excited, even though the trails will be in San Juan County. It's going to benefit all of Spanish Valley and Grand County, taking a lot of pressure off of the Bar M trails so that we can have this trail for mountain biking. And it'll also be, which I'm excited about, be able to be used for adaptive hand cyclists. And I'm a big proponent of those individuals that can get out and have the opportunity to get out on a trail. Even though they might have, a handicap. So that this is a really incredible opportunity for us. So the cost for him to design the trail will be approximately $3,960, which will come out of the economic development and tourism budget in 2023. And then he will determine what the entire cost to design the trails in the different phases. And I've already had a conversation with the Governor's Office of Outdoor Recreation to see if we can apply for grant funding to cover those portion of those costs as we go through the different phases of creation. And I'm happy to say that the Outdoor Office of Recreation, they have looked at the amount of our contribution for San Juan County and a couple of other counties and have taken into consideration some of the statistics for San Juan that we were always a fourth class county and had a higher contribution, and somehow they've listened and they've put us in a lower match
percentage match, which I am grateful for. So now if we can just get the rest of the state offices to go that route.
Totally. Good job.
Yes. So
Good.
anyway,
So,
any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Adams?
So just give us a general bird's eye view of where this Mud Springs area is.
If you are leaving Grand County and coming south, before you start up Blue Hills Road, you would turn to the left and go back in that area.
Okay.
Right there. It's like before you start up the hill. So we are thinking, I did have a request from the Active Trails and Transportation, the committee, about possibly having a turning lane that could be put in that vicinity there, which I think we're going to address at some point down the road. Because we will, this is really going to benefit Grand and San Juan, especially those people in Spanish Valley. They're very excited to have an additional mountain biking trail. So it's right there before you start up the hill.
So I think that area is all settler land.
There's some of it. It's kind of a combination.
Oh, is
So
it?
we're in talks with we're going to be in talks with Sitla because we need a larger parking. They've identified parking, but in order for us to hold NICA events or high school mountain biking events, we need a much larger parking area. So we're going to be focusing on that discussion with them. And the BLM has also agreed that they will pay for the NEPA study. I mean, they're in. Everyone's all in on this.
Hey,
Hopefully, all the stars will align, and we'll be able to pull this off. 'Cause it'll be a
I just didn't want you to run into some right-of-way issues.
yeah. No,
At the end.
we're going to have that conversation because if we don't have a larger parking naturally to accommodate all the vehicles with all the bikes and kids and everything, but I hopefully Sitla, and they're aware of what we're asking for. They're supportive of it until something may come up down the road for development. But I we'll work with them or continue to work with them as we move forward.
Very good. I should have known you were way out in front.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Grand County Trails in developing the Mud Springs area in San Juan County.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second. Anybody can hear me?
Yeah, we can
We can
hear
hear you.
Hello?
We heard you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also.
He seconded it, so I'm sure he voted for it.
He said, "Oh,
Okay.
Thank you so much for your support.
Yeah.
Opposed? Motion passed. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you.
thank you, Wayne." All right, the next one, you have item number 11, consideration and approval of a contract with Thomas D. Sutterud, attorney at law for public defender services for $174,000. This one here, as a reminder, Happy Morgan did resign her position. She used to be our public defender in the past.
Did we actually accept that resignation?
Yes.
We should never from Happy. Yeah, we did. It did come across. She was, I'm done. Yeah. So that's, yeah. When the attorney's door all of a sudden opened, everybody just kind of bailed on us. But so Thomas has been our conflict attorney in the past for multiple years, and we've had him under the contract. He actually assumed the district court judge, his position. He used to be a conflict attorney with us in the past as well, and so it's kind of shuffle the deck here. There's not a lot of attorneys that are out there. Thomas was the only one that applied through the request for qualifications, and so therefore we don't have a lot of options with that. It's a $48,000 a year increase in overall costs. Speaking to Happy and other attorneys, this is kind of normal costs throughout the state as availabilities of attorneys really, it's just they're not there anymore. If so, they're in private practice and making a lot of money. And so to come and work for a county is pretty difficult. But, we're happy that Thomas at least applied for it. There will be a vacancy in our conflict attorney, and speaking through Brittany had a great idea as well. Maybe we don't contract for a conflict attorney. Maybe we just let the courts assign conflict attorney and we just pay that hourly rate instead of having a conflict attorney for $80,000 a year sitting there guaranteeing $80,000 a year. But if there's not the conflict cases that arise, why pay him $80,000 a year for not doing anything? And that was kind of Thomas's issue when speaking to Alex along the way as we looked at this, months and months ago. Alex had mentioned that sometimes in Thomas's contract he would make bank because he didn't have as many conflict cases. The county would pay him kind of a guaranteed max. Other years he was underwater because of that guaranteed max, and so it kind of ebbed and flowed. But Brittany's like, well, let's just see where it goes, and just pay an hourly rate for these conflict attorneys instead of having an additional conflict attorney on board. And so when and just as a reminder, as we go into legislative session, the public defender team up at the state, they're recommending that between us and Grand County that there's 4 attorneys. So they have a public defender, we have a public defender, and we try to work out this 3rd and 4th attorney amongst us in a partnership. Part of the whole structure with public defense is the state really needs to start helping out, paying for some of this as well. And I know you've heard it. We both argued it with him. I just don't forget that argument that we need. This is a federal requirement. That's a federal mandate to the state, and the state's gifted it down to the counties. Well,
but they don't fund it.
Yes, exactly, non-fund mandate. And they'll tell us, you can apply for administrative grants that help out with, administrative assistant or paperwork. But all of our public defense attorneys, they don't need an assistant. What they need is the funds to help on the investigative side. So you can imagine being here in San Juan County and you have to hire an investigator from up north. They don't have investigators here. And so that's out of pocket for them. That's what comes from this $174,000. And so the state really, we just need to continue to beat that battle drum with them, is start funding some of this. Don't put it on the backs of our residents here, because it is a requirement and you have to be able to show that on our prosecution side of it, we're spending just as much as we are on public defense. It's got to be a judicial pendulum where it can't be one-sided, and either way it has to be balanced. What we spend for prosecution has to be spent for public defense. So it's kind of a balance. But here are costs, and you hear this, you'll hear this across the state. Because of the appeals, it's kind of normal nowadays that you appeal, no matter what the case is. Whether you're right or you're wrong, you're in appellate court. Well, that's an extra burden to the taxpayers. So state, start funding the appeal side of it at least. And so just keep in mind, I know I'm on my soapbox as we get into the legislative session, that it would sure be nice for the state to help fund with this instead of on the burden of taxpayers.
Okay. Mr. Adams?
This has been my soapbox for 5 or 6 years. The state continues to spend all of their public defender money in the 4 big counties, Salt Lake and Davis, Weber, and the other one. and you talk to them and they tell you to send in a grant application from the county attorney's office. We've jumped through the hoops for years and never got any money. And so, you know, to get that money from the state is just it's a joke in rural counties. We know we're not going to get any. The one question I do have this morning is I want to ask our representative from the county attorney's office if the county attorney's office has reviewed all of these contracts that we've gone over today and give us a thumbs up on them, or do you have any problems with any of the contracts we're looking at today?
No,
Okay.
none whatsoever.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're awake over there, so.
Yeah, I'm awake.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the contract with Thomas Siderud for public defender services at $174,000.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll second it. I will second it if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Is there any comment or question? There be none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. How do you vote, Ken?
Behind a rock.
Ooh, I. Can you hear me?
We can
We hear you.
Very good.
Thanks. Thanks for the multiple eyes.
Opposed, nay. 3 in favor, 0 opposed, motion carried. Number 12,
Okay, this is approval of additional 2022 budget appropriation request. Budget increases may be funded by new revenues, state and local fiscal recovery funds, and or monies unspent in the prior year. Fund balances. This last night we went through, kind of gave you an update where we were at last night. This is just the 2022 budget finalization.
Yeah. So the final figures on that were the 17 million.
I pulled up our Polaris system so it's a little bit easier to show you on there because it puts the revenues and expenses right up on top. So if you look on your screen right now, you can see that we had overall budget revenue of $17,282,328. And then with that, our expenditures were under our revenue, creating a surplus of $199,745 that will begin this year's beginning appropriation balance.
So effectively, what you've done is you've made the adjustments in each area using unspent or funds that were available to shore up the budget so that the budget is not in the negative.
In most of the areas, correct.
Okay. So I'll make a motion. We
you
approve
already
the final.
motion.
Don't need
Is
one?
it? Okay. I thought you made a motion.
Okay.
That was
Going to
it.
you, reading my mind now.
That was it.
Hold it. Easy, Bruce. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right.
Thank you.
So, my question is, does that create a balanced budget for
Correct.
22?
For 2022.
Okay.
And we still
That's
ask,
what I wanted to
we
hear.
we
Balanced
still ask
budget.
departments, there's still a couple weeks left in the year, so don't frivolously expend. There's just a little bit of cushion in most of our departments in there. But
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
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 3 in favor. Any objection? 0. Motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. $13.
Okay, 13 is discussion and approval of the proposed 2023 San Juan County budget. So this one, if you'd like, I can go through and explain what we did to the budget and where we ended up.
So last year we had a budget of 17 million. This year we have a budget of 15 million. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, and you've got to remember we received a payment from the federal award
Right.
of that for, so it throws off our budgets, and taking on these ARPA funds, you see that increase. So if you kind of look at 2020, 2021's budget revenues and expenses, it kind of gives you a clearer picture rather than the 22 when we take on these additional funds and it blows up our revenue, making it look a little bit.
But we still have
skewed.
to account for them, right?
We still have to account for it on the record, and so yeah, but it's hard to normalize a trend when you're just looking at that, not considering that you got to take out that money that we placed into
Right.
to savings. And so I'll go through this really quickly if there's quickly in my ability to go through the budget. When you look at the taxes on here, we've kind of just, like I had mentioned last night, is we've placed our budgetary property tax at what the tax commission is anticipating across the board, whether it's in general fund, health district, library tax, road. We've just stuck their number in there. Typically for us, we will always collect more in tax revenue from, for example, the Lisbon Valley mine payments, things like that, where they were arrears, we forgive them, they pay that plus interest. Well, that's additional tax collected that's not included in this number. And so you typically see that. Or it may be a minus. We lost out on some of the appeals last year that came through, and that ebb and flows out of our tax revenue that comes out is, those appeals that, go in favor of, the appellant rather than the county. And so those adjustments will take place throughout. You're seeing a decrease in federal grant awards. Mainly, this is a decrease in that fund, whereas in previous years we had the Cal Black Airport project that was a 100% federally funded project. Now you see the decrease in that federal funds. We still do have the ARPA funds. Tammy has several of her projects. The HMPG grant, or that BRIC grant that we received on that hazard mitigation study that still continues. So that's in part of that budget as well. But really it took a nosedive from where we were at in the past. And so most of our revenue kind of stayed similar. We are anticipating a surplus sale here in the county, which kind of will help bring in additional revenue this next year. We haven't surplus vehicles for a couple years now, and so there's some that are out there, search and rescue vehicles, things like that we no longer need. We've got the victim advocate vehicle that sits out there, that little black Blazer that we need to surplus, and so we've added some of that revenue in there just to try to make sure we're making up with revenue that we need and ongoing. So you can kind of take a look. I don't know if you have any questions on the revenue side of it. We can certainly get down into the expenditures. In the expenditures, so remember, just to bring back to mind, we were in overall requests, we were at $3.1 million in overall requests. In a deficit of that 3.1. So we were able to fine tune some of these requests. And what we try to do is normalize across departments, what are you spending? What have you spent historically in the past? Kind of what your average is. If there was an increase in the department requests, some of those are funded throughout. If they've asked for additional employees, those things were considered and added or not yet added based on what your approval is today. And so we've kind of gone through all of our departments and normalized those. One of the things that I highlighted last night in executive session that we need to make sure clear today is spending a little bit more funds with our employees, and a lot of it just morale boosters. Typically in a government setting, you would bring in employees and recognize years of service, things like that. So years of service awards. Well, we haven't done that here, since I've been here. And so it's trying to get back into that practice of recognizing employees. So we did put in $10,000 to that budget in personnel to do a little bit more wellness program here to help out our employees overall. Kind of going through, you do see the bigger adjustments in the attorney's office of we've hired 2 new attorneys. Jens, your question about the contract with Thomas Hitterud, we hired Jens Nelson, who isn't here today. He's another attorney that we have. He reviewed that contract with Thomas. So all of our contracts go through attorneys. And now that we have Brittany and Mitch and Jens, we've got 3 dedicated attorneys now. It helps speed up that workflow and that process. So you see that adjustment in the county attorneys. We do have some reorganization that's been talked about in the past that was needed with their administrative assistant, title changes, workflow changes that take place in there. Kind of continuing down, there's really no big changes. When you get into our non-departmental funds, like I mentioned, the general plan, we do have that in here in non-departmental in anticipation that we do need to go through that general plan. On here, we've got just kind of our regular costs that we typically have. We did fund in here as well is that request that came through, and this was in the 2022 budget as well, is we are setting aside 1% of that $8 million that came to the county. And with that 1%, we're sending 1% of that back to Washington. They have formed an organization back there that will help rural counties in Utah and really throughout the nation. This is not just our effort, it's multiple, really the Western Conference. It's the NACO Western Conference that's in participation with this, as creating an entity that will help us fight for additional PILT. Every year as commissioners go back to NACO, back to Washington, D.C., we fight and argue that we need the federal government to start paying their tax. And this PILT is that. So we've designated 1% to go back to Washington to help in those efforts. And now that $8 million, it specifically stated that you cannot use that $8 million for lobbying efforts. This isn't a lobby, and this is actually, we're creating an organization that will help counties. It'll be when commissioners go back there, we can meet with this organization and they can tell us the ins and outs. Okay, commissioner, here's where you need to go, or here's what they're doing, here's their efforts. So they'll track these PILT progress, PILT talks, and then we'll go back there. So I want to make sure it's clear that this is in no case a lobbying effort. We're not hiring a firm to go out and meet with Congress. It's an entity that when we go back there, it's a resource that we can pull from.
Matt,
So,
can I say something about
yeah,
that?
go ahead.
NACO, which is our national organization, National Association of Counties, 3,300 counties in this organization, proposed that we use a portion of this fiscal recovery funds. San Juan County got the most in the state of Utah, which is a first. That the Wasatch Front didn't get the most, we got the most. And it's because of the amount of public land we have. So this center is a center to help big public land counties lobby Congress for PILT money, as Max said. So every county that received some of this local recovery funds has been asked to put a portion of that money into this organization, which is an arm of NACO, and we've needed this kind of organization for a long time to help us with our national legislators. So I'm excited. I'm grateful for that they're going to take on the leadership in this, and it'll involve county commissioners in all rural counties throughout the entire nation. But we know that public lands really don't start until you get west of the Mississippi River. So there are little bits of public land here and there in the counties in the east, but most of it exists in the west. So it's a good deal.
One of the big expenditures that you see in information technology, excuse me, in the IT realm is that we allocated $100,000. This is for that consultant that we hired here in 2022 and committed to $13,000. We don't really know where this will end up. It was interesting in some of the conversations. We actually had an individual from the CIA reach out to us the other day about our ransomware attack. Apparently, we were one of 7 counties that were picked up in a string of communication back in Denmark, where the individual created a kind of like a cloud server where they can collect information from these 7 entities and store that data online. And so the CIA and federal government reached out to us and said, hey, San Juan County, we're picking up your information back here in Denmark. Did you guys receive a ransomware attack? And so we filled in the blanks for them. Trey's working with them to give them that information, because they're wanting to know, well, if they can catch this individual, how much did it cost the county? How much did it cost the county in time? You know, with one of these, we're looking at a complete overhaul of our network. We think that ransomware virus, bot, whatever it is still in our network. We can't find it, and so in order to get it out, you pretty much just kill your network and start all over again. Well, there's some cost to doing that. And so with that, you know, that this one, $100,000 helps that consulting firm that we've been working with help us through that whole entire process, kind of gives Trey some relief so he can continue making sure we're operational on the operational standpoint, and these guys can help us out on the networking side of it. But it was good to hear and hear the CIA reach out to us and say, hey, it's unfortunate that we're one of the 7, but nevertheless, they're on it, and hopefully they can catch the individual so that we can hopefully try to get some money back out of the criminal. And so I don't know, the jurisdictional issues or whatever the case, but it was good news to hear. You see in our budget, the professional and technical legal defense, we still have payments that go to the Navajo Nation on there. So that's what you see in that. The payment still coming out for the lawsuit several years ago. In the original request on building improvements, you had over $700,000 in building improvement requests, as well as parking lot requests in our facilities. I've taken this out of the general fund budget, moved it into the capital fund budget, and so those disappeared, freed up some of the revenue here, but really it's a transfer of other funds into our capital fund budget. Kind of going down. You have economic development. You kind of see the trend when you look at the trend line for her department, similar with Grant and the health fund, is a lot of their contracts span multiple county years. So because the state is on a fiscal year ending in July, from June to July, some of our grants carry over, and Elaine is one of those departments, as well as TRT, where you can continue to collect TRT and maybe not necessarily spend it in the year that it was received, collect it and spend it in the next year, so you can do more with it. so bigger projects. And so you kind of see those reflected in the budgets. So originally where Elaine was proposing 1.2 million visitor services, we went through and made sure that contracts that were going to be spent this year in this next year's budget were reflected compared to in the 2022 budget. And so you see some of those difference in offsetting contract obligations that we have throughout. Promotion and marketing kind of stayed the same for us. The sheriff's department, if you remember, the sheriff did ask in equipment purchases of $116,000 in request, and this is computers that they needed. They needed more body armor, body protection. The tasers are expiring, and he had mentioned that, if we replace half of them, that's pretty good for him. And so you see the difference between those asks. And so we'll get him the computers, tasers, body armor. We'll only purchase half of the tasers. Speaking to the incoming sheriff, I'm like, the only reason I'm funding half of your tasers now is those tasers technically have to be replaced every 3 years. I'd rather have half of the total ask every 3 years than it's $17,000 for all. It's like, give us half of that in increments rather than the whole, trying to bite the whole thing. And in the sheriff's presentation, the sheriff had mentioned that, as long as we're buying half, we're pretty good. And that in there, it covers the 6 Kevlar vests as well that he had asked for. So we're kind of static on everything else going down. In our budget, we tried to just kind of give the increases where it made sense. If you remember last year, we worked to move dispatch into price. And so our dispatch now, 911, is out of price. There is a contract obligation that we have with that, around $70,000 to $80,000. There is an amount that's in arrears. We're trying to work with public safety to try to reduce that amount. So you don't see that amount in here, but the $70,000 is what we're anticipating and what we would have to pay for price the dispatch services. Now with that, we receive funds from the federal government. So from the Forest Service, BLM, they pay a portion of our 911, as well as Blanding City will have to pay a portion of 911 now. Monticello City, because we oversee Monticello City, we will cover them. But part of that $70,000 includes Blanding and the Forest Service BLM costs as well. And so as they pay their bills to us, then that reduces our overall take on there. Inmate commissary is one of the things that we're working on with the sheriff's office in their budget. There's a lot more commissary that's not included on here, and we'll get that, and we'll have some updates by your mid-year budget. But there's probably around, I don't know, just off the cuff, around $200,000 that's in commissary that needs to transfer over onto this budget. We didn't have it as the time that we produced this budget, but we'll make sure we get that in there and make those appropriations whole next year when we open our budget. Because of E911 has gone down, so has that revenue. The revenue now will go to price on the E911. In emergency services, this is where we get into the Pat Creek projects. And so originally, Tammy had anticipated running the projects through emergency services budget. So that's why you see her ask of 1.2. We tailored that back down to the $105,000, which is really that BRIC grant, that HMPG, which is that hazard mitigation program that's ongoing right now. So it pays for that as well as the additional PDM projects that's there. So all she really needed was the 105. We moved the Pat Creek project into the capital funds, Fund 45, and we'll get to that a little bit later on with that one. Continuing on down, weed control, they're receiving more revenue in our noxious weed program from the state. And this revenue sources for them are also BLM, as we battle the tamarasks along the river, olive, the Russian olive as well. So there's some additional revenue there. So you see kind of that increase in their revenue as well coming through. They've done a great job of reaching out and making sure we receive the grants on there. Getting down to their communications, we pretty much kept them the same, continuing with the same outsourced program to make sure our VHS system is up and operable. If you remember back with some of our previous presentations with Dave purchasing additional radios, handheld radios, I think around the tune of $81,000 in radios that he was able to fund. As we partner with UCA and migrate over to that 800 megahertz system, then that kind of frees up our budgets elsewhere, and so you kind of see a reduction in that budget. Historic Commission, they continue to come in and make asks, and so we funded them at $5,000. This last year, they haven't pulled a lot of money out, but they're working on scanning a bunch of documents. I've also asked them to start working on I don't know what you'd call a photo collage of previous commissioners that we can hang here in the commission chambers. It'd be nice to have just a picture of all of those previous commissioners hung in here, that we continue to recognize former commissioners in the county.
I think the hanging of previous commissioners is appropriate.
There's that too. The county fair budget went up, but so did their revenue, and so it's a little bit misleading. Where they went up from originally last year's budget was $75,000. They spent $103,000, but in there was the concert. So if you remember mid-year, we decided after mid-year, we decided, hey, well, let's have a concert again. She was able to pull off a concert, but she brought in the revenue that balances it out back up on top. And so with that, we're anticipating them hosting another concert again, about $50,000. I did also add in, and we're going to have to work on a contract with our fair producer. If that's what you'd call it. I don't know what you call Ann, but she's awesome. She's a fair producer. So she's just been really good to us. And so you see in that professional and technical, I went from $10,000 to $15,000. So it gave a little bit wiggle room for us to reward her in our efforts. I don't think she's had an increase in her overall costs since I've been here. It was before my time. Yeah. So that gives us a little wiggle room to negotiate with Anna, but also give her a little bit more pay for her efforts on there, if that makes sense.
It's amazing how almost that fair is a year-round project.
It is for her. No,
just not that week of the fair. She's working year-round on that thing.
She is, absolutely. So this year we did receive $20,186 to go towards our homeless efforts here in the county. Last year we were able to spend $4,000 of that, and then this is a new grant that we received to also apply. This one is a little bit. This one will be a little bit more in coordination with the Public Health Department as well. Is getting more awareness at several of our shelter sites. Now, when you talk about shelter sites in San Juan County, we have kind of two. We have Gentle Ironhawk that is in Blanding, that is the women's shelter there. So part of that is in partner with them, where we can get them better education, WIC services, COVID services, vaccinations, things like that at the Gentle Ironhawk, as well as St. Christopher's Mission down in Bluff, partnering with them to do likewise the same, where they have been a sheltering component here in the county. Although they're not announced as a shelter, they do have temporary housing that individuals do utilize there at the mission. And so we'll partner with them on some of their costs that they have, and making sure that they're enforcing disease prevention and just cleaning habits and education to those individuals that are going through those services. And so that's what those grant funds are for. All of these are kind of the state programs with TAMI, senior centers, congregate mills that kind of are state funded, that we really don't change what TAMI is. Typically overall what she's seen is a decrease in state costs, which is kind of hurts us in the end, but she's always able to, at the end of the year, I don't know how they do it, but they're able to continue to exist and fund our senior centers. And if you've ever been out to our senior center out to LaSalle, people are dedicated to our senior centers, and they come out in droves. It's social opportunity for a lot of our individuals, and so we continue to fund that. You see in our Cal Black Airport, the reduction in overall costs there. We do have projects like I'd mentioned, the AWAS system, which is that all-weather system that is funded in here, as well as our building and grant. This is the grants that we received from CARES Act. We need to go through. One of them is the roof replacement project, replace that roof. Some of those logs on the exterior, if you've been out to Cal Black, remember it's kind of an Adobe type building, kind of that Adobe architecture with logs that are exposed. Well, those logs on the exterior are rotting through. That's the only roof support through the whole entire structure. And so we need to cut those logs off, stop the water damage from coming inside the building, and secure those, not necessarily roof trusses, but the supports for the roof system. And so you see that, and we'll pay for that expenditure out of the CARES Act grants that also expire here this next year. Special projects, there's one in here in particular that just need to highlight. We did budget the rodeo in here of $80,000 is what we're anticipating. And so, just know that, expect that we will have that rodeo taking place, kind of going back to bringing people back out of the woodwork and starting to have some of these community events take place. As we get down to the transfer, you'll see the transfer to the ambulance fund of $532,000 this year, just over that goes to our ambulance. And then you have the transfer to tort liability, which is our USIP payment, as well as the deficit that we've got to come in. In our overall budget, I've mentioned, as I explained it, there's some of these one-time issues, like the tasers, paying for half of the tasers, and the 6 Kevlar vests, the 14 computers for the sheriffs. As I studied and went through what qualifies as eligible costs for the ARPA funds, I was able to go through and pick up a lot of these one-time expenditures out of that, and that's really what helped us decrease that deficit that we had. So if I scroll back up to the top and you look at our beginning revenues that come in and kind of help set our budget, we have an ARPA transfer of $1.4 million, so just over $1.4 million, and I've broken it out in our budget here. With that, these are some of the eligible uses. We were able to fund lost employees. So if you downsized your organization, which we did, we didn't hire key positions, and so we can fund key positions out of that we have to hire back because of COVID. And so because of that, I've got that funded in here. Our general plan kind of has an affordable housing component. That's eligible for ARPA funds. The IT aspects, that $100,000 that I talked about, that's eligible for ARPA funds. So I went through kind of and picked those apart. So we've got this year we're using $1.4 million in ARPA funds. In here also, I will fund the the building improvements as well as the parking lots. Those, I mean, you've got to have public places, and the public places have to be healthy. And so, because it allows us to fund public places and maintain public places, then I've used those ARPA funds for that. And so, you see a bigger chunk of that ARPA funds already being spent. What this does in the end, this will leave us around just over $1.3 million still remaining of ARPA funds that have to be appropriated or designated by December of 2024. So we have one more year to try to figure out where to spend that 1.3. But for this year, I've chosen to shore up our budget with that, as well as pay for some of these one-time costs. We're not going to have to upgrade our parking lots for, at least another 7 years for a seal coat, and then after that, you're 14 plus years. And so some of these one-time costs, when I talked about the sheriffs, the laptops, things like that, those are one time. We get those taken care of with ARPA funds. Kind of pushes that down where we don't have to replace them. Same with the tasers and the vests. And so that will kind of it helps us forego some of those costs out of our general funds, but helps us kind of secure things, and it's appropriate. We've got to spend the money. So I felt, well, let's start spending it where it made sense. And so that's what we did. When we get down into that, you see that transfer of ARPA funds down at the bottom of just over 1 million, about 106 million or 1.06 million going into our other funds. When you look at the road fund, on here, sorry for my voice, the road fund, you'll see on there's that balanced budget again, the budget revenues coming in at 6.5 million. Their expenditures reaching at that 6.5. They're one of those funds that we take their surplus fund and pull money out for projects and put them into their operational fund. This is their operational fund with that anticipated revenue coming from their surplus funds or from their savings. And so you kind of see these balances of funds, that are coming in or transferred to other funds. They're anticipating transfer of $831,000 from their other road fund, their capital fund, from their reserves. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you see those being a little bit more clear now for the public, so the public kind of sees that transfer. The MBA is holding the same. We're not really asking for any additional buildings right now or loans. You will, and if you remember back this previous year, we did bring before the public the approach for the public safety building through CIB. As we apply for that, then you'll see some hopefully potential changes in the MBA account as we get to that. We didn't anticipate anything like that yet. Until we get a little bit more clear of what that outcome is going to be, but anticipate an application being made to the CIB for that public safety building in here, which we will then have to make those modifications in there. Fund 25 for our health fund. They're coming in showing a budget surplus of $13,000 for this next year, so they've got a little wiggle room. Hats off to Grant and his team. As they've gone through their budget. When I first got here in the county and started working for the county just a little over 3 years ago, we were going to the public for a tax increase, and the health department was one of those funds that we were going to have to increase because we couldn't get it to stabilize. Well, over the last couple of years, we've been able to stabilize that account to where we now start to consider, well, the county, similar to how we've been doing with the ambulance, helped prop up the health department as we transition from southeastern Utah to San Juan County to make them a department. The county, out of general funds, supported them financially as well. So now the discussions are like, well, so now when do we start making them pay back? And so we haven't done any transfers out of the health department yet. To shore up some of that deficit that was created in general fund. But with that, we're super excited that they're able to go through and balance their budget in so much that they have surpluses in there. We continue to collect the tax. Part of their tax, as a reminder, it goes to San Juan Counseling. Well, probably, I would say, on percentage-wise, a majority goes to San Juan Counseling. Grant and his team have been able to go through and go out with the state, federal government, partnership with them, and received revenue from their grants to make ends meet through here, in as much that there's a surplus in their budget for that. And so super excited that, we're at that type of a position in that department. There's obviously where they line a budget on there, a lot of changes. You see those grants come across, a lot of them consent agenda, because we continue to renew and amend current contracts. And that's a good thing. That means we're the right shoe for the right fit, and we continue to engage in those programs here because it's been successful for us. And so I was super excited about that in that fund. Continuing down to Fund 26, I appreciate the passing that resolution today. In our EMS, this is the one that we're super worried about. It. You see, we've balanced their budget. A lot of their budget is balanced just because we do have this $531 or $482,000 transfer in from the general fund, plus that $50,500 deficit requirement that we've got to spend. So because of that expenditure, and we do have to spend down that deficit that was from the general fund bank account, we've got to make sure that this has a surplus fund in it, so that money goes back to general fund and feeds that bank account on that deficit. And so a lot of it, though, is because of that contribution to that. And with that resolution passed today, we'll be able to work with the health district and try to solve some of these problems here in the future. CRA fund, I mentioned last night, we're just keeping that the same. As we reached out to the health district, these other taxing entities that were original discussions with the creation of the redevelopment agents areas in the county, one in Bluff, one was supposed to be in Blanding. They presented, or so we think they presented, to the taxing districts so the Water Conservancy District and the Health District. We could never find approvals in there. So when we tried to bring the participation agreement back to the commissioners, part of that participation agreement also was with the Water Conservancy District and the Health District. But I could never find in their minutes where they've approved them. So we reapproached those districts and asked them if they were ever engaged in a presentation with the county to get those created. And, oh, by the way, you're supposed to be participating. The commissioners entered in, right before I got here, into resolutions authorizing those entities and a partnership with them in that participation agreement. But as I reached out and went back to the Water Conservancy District and the Health District, they can remember conversations being had, but no commitments being made. And so I've asked both of those to give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. Pretty much it was thumbs down. They do not want to participate in that. It's unfortunate because really those taxing entities had an opportunity. The developments, so the Blanding CRA never came to fruition because of investors or whatever. It kind of all went away. But the county still did have a commitment to bluff dwellings and that CRA that was committed. We committed to helping fund that turn lane, some of the infrastructure there, and committed to reimbursing him back. And those taxing entities were supposed to be a part of that. And what it does is it reduces the county's obligation, shares it across the taxing districts, knowing that that project in itself is bringing millions back to their tax collection. Well, they still didn't want to participate in the health district or whatever. I'm like, well, hey, there's Commissioner Maryboy. Commissioner Maryboy, welcome back. So with that,
Hey, there you are.
sorry, we need to see you. I just keep on jabbering. So with that, the health district, they don't want to participate. The Water Conservancy, they're like, no. This isn't, I'm like, whatever, these guys are making you guys more money than
The school district.
we're in. No, the school district was automatically out from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so with that, we may have to up this amount, but we'll set it up through the tax commission so that the CRA is now on the tax rolls. So when you get the tax notice, you'll see CRA there, and then we'll be able to start reimbursing bluff dwellings back for that project. And so stay tuned with that. We didn't move anything knowing that we've got to structurally set it up and bring that participation back now that no other taxing entities are there with us. Fund 45 is where I mentioned that we'll take care of the Pat Creek project. This is in a deficit on the spending, and I didn't shore this up on purpose. The project is around $900,000 from NRCS funds that we'll receive with that. But the total project costs are around $1.2 million. And so, or just over $1 million. I've got it down here a little bit further. But with that, it creates this deficit of $232,000 in there. Part of this we got to figure out on the county side of it. Where does the county portion come from? You know, or are we taking it? There's the road that goes through there, which is a road department fund. We didn't transfer any funds into that from the road department for that road that goes through there that we'll have to fix, that low water crossing or high water crossing, whatever is proposed there. But we also need to reach out to the community. Those projects that are in Pat Creek and will take place in Pat Creek are primarily on private property. And so because of that, we chose not to allocate any general funds or any of our tax to that. The citizens should really bear that cost. Those property owners should bear that cost. I was in a conversation with Pat Creek Water District there. They may be willing to enter into an MOU, and then they can charge those water users a fee, so they can increase their fee to collect what is remaining of those projects through that water district. And I think that's the best approach, instead of each individual property owner paying their own, share it throughout the community, because a lot of that does benefit that water district there. And so stay tuned for that agreement to come. We'll start talking to them, sitting down with them in January to work out the agreements of that MOU. Instead of having to, the other options are you're creating a special assessment area for those property owners where they either pay a special assessment fee, or you can create that special assessment area that taxes them, and the county loans the money to them, and then they pay it back on their property tax in additional property taxes. With the MOU, it would be anticipated that we treat them similar to that we did with Spanish Valley, where the county loans the money, and through a reimbursement agreement, we catch that reimbursement back. So if it's $200,000, $232,000, it'd be $100,000 a year that they would have to reimburse the county back on. And so anticipate that type of an agreement coming back. But we do have in here the modifications that will take place down to the landfill in our capital funds. Those improvements here to the HVAC system, our parking lots, things like that we're ARPA funding, are in our Fund 45 now. When you get down here to the bottom, you'll start to see the emergency services, which is the Pat Creek project, come to fruition on this fund. And then the landfill building, as we talked about, the need for a better scale house down there. That's something that actually has restrooms. We need to get out of that temporary, are we going to be a landfill, and get more into having a building that has the appropriate health and sanitation for our employees on there. And so you see that here in this fund to be spent this next year. Road capital fund is what I mentioned, where we're pulling that money out. into the road funds. Landfill, you see there's landfill is one of those funds that we are making some adjustments on equipment purchases, and so you see that purchase of the truck. This is one of the landfill semi trucks in here, so you have that adjustment in the budget as we start to get into those needs. Also in our equipment rental line item, you'll see an increase. I don't know where that equipment rental is. Have $97,000. That's for that loader rental on here. And so he was able to find those rentals, save us money. And with that, in the end of the day, he's got an anticipated revenue of a surplus revenue of $131,000. Kind of continuing through our tort liability, I'd mentioned that previously. Our tax stability fund is just ongoing, that tax stability. But we just pull interest off. We don't mess around with the tax stability. Library fund, again, the library was one of those funds that was also looking at doing a tax increase. It's still questionable. They're borderline. She's always able to go through and modify her budget. There is a surplus. A lot of it is a revenue, that beginning fund balance that's transferred from last year of the 6,000 over into this year, that makes her a surplus revenue of 11,000. She's right on the cuff. Would like to see this fund putting more set aside for capital funds. There's not a lot of wiggle room in $11,000. But nevertheless, we'll take it because it's a positive, and just know that in the future there will be some capital expenses that we're going to have to start thinking of strategically as roof systems, HVAC systems wear out in our libraries. How do we replace some of those? But nevertheless, she had a $19,000 beginning operating budget that kind of helped her this last year, and so super excited about that fund as it continues forward. Other than that, that's kind of all of our funds in a nutshell. One of the big questions, and I'm sure all the employees are tuning in, trying to figure out, okay, there's no increases in there, nor do we see. So in here, we are proposing that there be an additional staff added to landfill as we get a landfill attendant down there to help us on the coverage for our cell coverage. Cell coverage is a requirement that we have by DEQ standards. We haven't been cell covering. And so their mantra is, don't open a cell until you close a cell. Well, we have 6 of them open and 1 of them closed. And so we're in trouble. And so a landfill attendant will allow all 3 operators to be out on equipment so we can get the coverage, so that we can reduce the amount that we have to keep in the state coffers for cell coverage in case we ever go belly up. They've got to come in and bail us out. We'd like to take that money and apply it somewhere else instead of keeping it in the savings for the state. So there is that 1 employee request in here with increases. This does not include the county increases, as most of you are aware, and hopefully the public is as well. As we've gone through and we've hired a consultant to do a wage analysis for us, and it's really looking at all of our positions across the county and trying to figure out, okay, where are we at as far as our competitive wages? Are we where we're supposed to be? Well, some employees are at a marketable wage. A lot of them aren't, to the tune, when we looked at the number yesterday, we're just over $1 million, probably about $1.4 million in one of the studies, outside of where we should be in a market comparison. It's pretty scary. But reflectively, we see that in the amount of turnover, especially like in our sheriff's office. We can't compete and haven't been able to compete where our wages are set. So I'm asking, and it's kind of a different type of an ask. We didn't put the wages in here. Would like to continue to work with some of the department heads to fine tune some of this, but I'm asking the commissioners today to authorize me to make some allocations up to about $1.7 million in wage increases throughout. With that in anticipation, where this last year, as we took from the benefit side of our employees. Would like to also balance that out on their wage side of it, give more into the pocket to balance out that what we took out. And so on some of those employees, as we look through that wage analysis that's come out, it's not recommending any increase at all because they're already in market wage. Well, we took out of benefits on this other side. Would like to put it on the other side of them, give it to them on the other side. So if those employees that aren't anticipated to have a wage adjustment because they're already in market, at least make them whole on the premium side of it. So we'll pay for the premiums in the wage increase on their salary plus 1%. So I don't want it just to be equal, that I didn't get an increase at all, even though they made me whole on this other side. They're taking it out over here, and that's not fair. So at least give them a 1%. I don't want to get it to a point where we're leading market in any county. We should never be leading market, but at least give them a 1% increase for those employees, match their premium coming out of pocket. And so there'll be in here, what I'm proposing is something for everyone, all employees. At the minimum, they'll receive that 1% plus making them whole on the premium. But in other employees, in other wages, there's definitely some things that we've got to adjust. Some are pretty deep. There's one of them that I was looking at. There's a $26,000 wage increase for one employee. I'm like, that's a lot, but rightly so. If we lost that employee, we could not hire that employee at where they're currently making. So be fair to the employee, bringing them up to that marketable wage. Also, some of our employees that are at an executive level and have been at an executive level for years never went through the change to where they're exempt employees, the salary exempt employees by law, and the law changed years ago, but we never changed those employees. With some of these market increases, we also need to make those FSLA adjustments so that those executive employees that are directors or whatever are now exempt employees, salaried employees. They will not, sad part, they will not accrue the overtime pay, comp time, things like that. But nevertheless, they are in those executive positions and by law need to be in exempt positions. And so it'll make those adjustments as well in there. And so I'm asking for a 1.7 that's not on here to make those adjustments. That should be enough as I apply the different metrics in there. I'm pretty sure I can get it down to that. Now, where does the money come from and how sustainable is that? I mean, we're increasing our budgets, almost as probably anticipated 25% in our just general fund alone. So the anticipation is these funds that are making money, like the health district, the landfill, the road department, they should be able to absorb some of that increase into their budgets. Like our library fund that I mentioned, that she's borderline. There's $11,000 difference there. There's not a lot of room for improvement in there for salary increases. We will have to take a portion of this $8 million and transfer some of those funds of that $8 million in to, like the library fund, into our general fund to make that whole. But, at that, so what I'm doing is feathering out that 1.7 million. Those funds that can afford it, and we'll make those adjustments. Those funds that can't, we'll take that $8 million, supplement those. But in the end, I just need to make sure we're clear and that's why you see some of these ideas of transferring, that ambulance services over to the health district. Can they help? That's a question that we have. Give me the 6 months to study that out, but I'm hoping to free up that $500,000 so that we can, in the end, with all of these adjustments, still try to maintain a stability in our general fund. If we can keep this, and that's why I told the commissioners last time, is like, that $8 million is there, but don't think of it as there. Because first, let's help our employees out. That's my first and ultimate goal, help the employees out. And then what is left over after 15 years, maybe we can spend it, but let's take care of our own first, because we've got to get some stability. We've got to take care of our employees in here. We cannot continue at the measures that we are. Any questions? I know that was a little bit lengthy.
Regarding the landfill,
Yes.
help with Roseland soap. And in the past, IHS had assist
Yes.
San Juan County
Yes.
in that project. The possibility that we can do. And I drafted a letter, but I needed you also to
Okay.
contact her.
Yes. And so,
say, well, I don't know, fiscal year is already adopted for the Navajo Nation and for IHS, it's already there.
okay.
And then, but they can put it in their plan for the following fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of movement on that front. So I did get the information and talk to Jed, our landfill operator, about that opportunity. Aneth continues to also look at creating a transfer station there in Aneth. And that was one of the things I mentioned to Aneth. So I was like, help me reach out to IHS to have these conversations as well. Because, they're asking, one of their asks for the county was, county provide the dumpsters and the transportation free. I'm like, well, let's talk to IHS, because originally when Commissioner Mark Maryboy was here, he had IHS paying for all of that for the chapters. So the chapters, IHS was paying for the bins and the construction of those. Yeah, Mark. And so I talked to the chapter president there in Anna. I'm like, let's try to reinvent that. Let's go back to IHS and see if we can get them. And then at that same time, it's like, well, you were part of our landfill. Help us make some of these improvements. So the communication, it's still happening, it's still taking place. And so, still certainly is a part of that, because we still collect. They're one of our bigger customers here at the landfill is the Navajo Nation. We receive trash from Navajo Sanitation as well as from Kayenta Township, Kayenta Unified School District. They all utilize our landfill. Yes, yeah.
Kayenta Township,
Yep.
Shooting.
Yes.
Probably the chapter also.
Yes,
The
yep.
chapter.
All of that. And so they've been a partner in the past, and we're going to try to get them to continue to be a partner for us. So yeah, great. Yeah.
For a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. I want to make a motion to approve the 2023 county budget as presented and budget and allow for our county administrator to budget increases for our employees using state and local fiscal recovery funds, SLFRF monies that we have, and having only received the market analysis yesterday, it's going to take some time to do that, but I think we can get it done by the end of the year. And so the motion is to approve the 2023 budget and also allow Mr. McDonald to use $1.7 million of the SLFRF monies to make
Adjustment. Salary.
employee increases. Is that clear?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a motion made by Mr. Adams.
Second.
Second. Okay. Any further question?
Keep an eye on Lyman.
That's what I did
Okay.
when I closed and the other eye open. If there's no further comment or recommendation, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye also. Opposed, nay. There being no nays, motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. That's,
Commission reports is your final.
I'm
you're hungry?
I'm excited about the increases to our employees, and I hope that they understand that this is being done through a market analysis. And so, I've no other reports. I've already had Christmas at my house, so I'm not even going to celebrate it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Maryboy, do you have a report?
I need to add one thing.
I don't.
I want to congratulate Sylvia Stubbs on Argentina winning the World Cup.
We'll have some mutton.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's
I
some,
know the Argentina loves mutton also.
there's some
Roast
beef.
Famous for the asado. Asado is you cook lots of big
Barbecue.
everything, all kinds of stuff.
All of the meats.
They're celebrating in
Perfect.
Argentina today.
Yeah, the landing.
Mr. Maryboy,
Yes, sir.
any report? None? Okay.
I have no report, but I do have a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, maybe I do have a little bit of a report. I've been hitting the chapters for the elders to transport and bring back some pellets for the stove, and been hitting some vendors to order new pellet stove for the elders, and just been keeping me busy. But I just wanted to thank the county and the commissioners to allow me to express the gratitude and also the needs of our people. And not to say that I'm gone forever. I'll be back in 4 years. And I think it's been quite a struggle trying to do the things you can for those that are less fortunate, and also those that are Native Americans in San Juan County, and all the way up to the state legislators. I avoided the state mainly because of the attitude. I couldn't get along with any of the legislators, so that's quite all right. I've made it known to them that I wasn't there for a popularity contest from the beginning. So other than that, some of the information that was given to us here today, I appreciate that, Mac. About several years ago, people questioned to see if I was doing the right thing to get you on board, and you fulfilled those needs and responsibility. I do appreciate that, and I wish to have you continue to do what you can for the people in San Juan County. And some of the things that we talked about was what we just barely did, giving a raise to to our staff, the people. These are the people that make us look good as a county commissioner, because they do a lot of work and they put in extra time because they love what they do, and it's their county. And to see that happen today, that's a big thank you. And I think I've done my part and done my best. I wasn't really a popular individual, but mainly because of some of the things that we just barely covered. One of the things that Bears Ears National Monument, but that's our prayer, and our traditional values are still there. And I still feel that it needs to be protected. And I will continue to stand by to make sure that it is. And for our community and the visitors into San Juan County to enjoy what they see there. The other one's the water settlement. They, on the council floor, I remember Mark asking a question. When are we able to take a position on this water settlement? There was an attorney that got up to Mark saying, "Yes, go get it." I think that's where it triggered. We went through a lot of loopholes to get to where it's settled. We're proud of that, and the county was there. Thank you very much, and we really do appreciate that. And the other ones, that we've done, and of course that we tried so hard to improve is the health care. I remember Chris and I, we've tried to extend and also to improve the facilities that are still existing. We had opposition from other individuals and people that we didn't need to, but people felt safe at the facility that they were visiting and being seen. We appreciate that and hope that continues to go on. Lastly, I felt that the settlement between the county and the nation on the voting right was something that needed to happen. And I hope it's continued nice and to practice the laws that's within the voting right to each individual. A lot of things were uncovered and a lot of things were discovered through that. I think those are the things that we really need to continue to drive. The commissioners make the decisions and they can change laws. But to exercise and to carry on responsibility and duty is. I've done what I can, like water waist deep and walking upstream. I've done it. My people made the decisions and to pick who they want. But little did they know what they will see within a few years. But that's okay. That's their decision. But I will continue to do what I can to help. With all through the pandemic, it was very, very hard. Avoiding it and avoid people and try to continue your life with one hand tied behind your back, it seems like. But we've done it. And I appreciate the work, and I appreciate the effort that the county took to try to bring the roads maintenance back to the county from the nation. And I hope we continue to do that. It really needs to happen. And looking at the little boys economically, the business side, we have the same construction over and over after years. There's people out there that own some equipment and they have businesses that can crush gravel to run blue tops. I hope we get to those. And Other than that, I'm good. I once again thank you, Bruce. Many times we went through some hard hurdles years back. Many times we were faced with some difficulties, but we managed to work those out. And at the same time, with the staff, those that are listening, I've always felt that the staff were the number one, and they needed to be given some kind of incentive with the family to enjoy, be part of what they do, the little government. And I hope you continue to do that. Allowing me to be part of you and allowing me to be part of what we did. I appreciate that. Politics is a very, very funny thing. Half of the people will never know what you've done. But more and more people will know whatever little stumble that you make through the pathway. But that's politics. Some of us, we know how to live with it, and some of us, we don't understand it. But yet, it's part of our life. Holidays are coming along for people and families to enjoy, and I hope each and every one of you do the same thing. I will miss you all. I will be here. Again, I will be back in 4 years. With that, Mr. Chairman, we did what we did, and thank you very much, and that will be the extent of my comment and my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any. If I start saying something, I might just break down and cry. So I'll forget.
I'll make a motion we adjourn before you cry.
Okay. Well, go ahead and second. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Adams. I second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. We will see you down the road, down the trail.
Good to have old Mitch in commission meeting today.
It's like going to church.
Yeah.